Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas. This is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. But this is a bonus episode. You've been following the series. It's going to keep going month to month. In the year 2026, we're celebrating 30 years since 1996, a year that saw a number of dope, classic, great. If it was weak, we don't know about it. Albums from the year. We've already done a few, but obviously once a month, I pick 12 albums. Gonna bring on a guest, as you can see, and talk about each album in depth. Real quick, let me just shout out those that have been listening to Hip Hop Now podcast in audio form. This is the 10th year anniversary of Hip Hop Now podcast. And like on every episode, I say to myself, somebody owe me some money, because I don't know. 10 years of free work? Nah, so I got to get the money somewhere. But nevertheless, shout out to those that have been listening, whether it's off and on or whatever. And also shout out to those on YouTube supporting the channel, subscribe, like, hype, all that good stuff, and comment. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to my guest, who's been on this channel before. If you've really been paying attention, illfam. This brother is obviously a hip hop head, but got a dope podcast, Black Wrestling. He does a whole bunch of other stuff, man. What's good, brother?
What's going on, man? It's interesting being live on screens. I'm used to like giving you everything hip hop culture. Like I'm used to this for years at this point. Because like I listen,
Right.
if you know folks that podcast, they you know what I mean, and they tell you they podcast, they create. Go listen to your people stuff, man. Because I run into people all the time, and I listen to you every week, man. And I was like, word, what were you listening to? He was like, yeah, I was listening to Wiz Buffy yesterday. Word? Well, I haven't done that in quite some time. So you was listening yesterday, man. Go listen to your people stuff, man. And like I said, man, it's really dope to be here while you actually record the intro.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you, man. I wanted to make sure that I brought people on who not only obviously hip hop fans and fans of these albums, but also can speak to it in ways where we learn stuff, right? We learn stuff about you as a fan, myself, the time, whatever it may be, man. So always a pleasure having you on the podcast. And go watch his podcast, Black Wrestling. I watch it, you know what I'm saying, when I'm ready to get my wrestling bag, or I haven't been watching in a while. I'm like, who's these niggas? I go watch them so I know who I'm looking at on the screen. You know what I'm saying? But definitely support. So let's get into it, man. So the year is 1996. De La Soul is coming back with a brand new album called Stakes is High. The date is July 2nd, 1996. If you're like, wait a minute. Yes, Nas, it was written, dropped the same day as this album, right? Highly decorated album for De La Soul, a crossroads in a lot of ways for them, a comeback in a lot of ways for them also. Real quick, I like to do this, fam, just to give us a little perspective. We have our own perspective, but on Apple Music, you know, they have these writers write these, like, I guess, like summaries about the album, and I'm gonna read a little bit from there. On their fourth album, Stakes is High, De La Soul provide the missing link between their unconventional attitude towards 80s hip hop and the upcoming revolution in 90s indie rap. The idiosyncratic rappers like Black Star and Company Flow that took their ball and ran with it. It marked a moment where they could have just as easily fallen off, stakes were indeed high. So obviously there's more there. But fam, do you see this album before we, get into the mix of it? Do you see this album in that same light that they described?
So yes, so my favorite thing, right? And gatekeep culture, right? I'm always say this. But when they talk about idiosyncrasies and cultural nuance, it's right, because I always felt like you had two kinds of rappers all the time. You always had like the Superman rapper and the everyday rapper, right? And the cool part about the everyday rapper is there were so many small touch points. You're like, oh, I felt that way too, or I went through that same thing. And when you get down to this subgenre of rappers, Stakes, man, you understand, like they speak for the regular guy. You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
heard all the superheroes and the Jay-Z super drug dealer, you know what I mean? That's
Right.
cool. But I can enjoy it, but this I can relate to. And I think that's where like the nuance comes into play.
And that's a good way to put it, right? Because I think a lot of people chose a side as opposed to being fans of it all and understanding how you relate to Stakes is High versus how you feel, or maybe even relate to Reasonable Doubt, was dropped a month before by Jay-Z, which was his debut, for those who don't know. And you've seen the episode. If not, go watch it. But yeah, I agree, man. And I like what was being said about the stakes is high. But I also feel like, and obviously we're going to get into it, but I also feel like the stakes is was high for De La Soul for a number of reasons at this point in this year in particular. But also when you listen to the album, the conscious commentary in the lyrics in the skits was also saying the stakes is high for, society, basically. So I think some of those things get lost on people, especially back then when it was about war and all of that and what was being said. But let me ask you this, right? So prior to the stakes is high, obviously I assume you're a big De La fan. What was your feelings about De La Soul before this album and leading up to this album?
So first rap video I remember is Potholes on My Lawn. That's the very, very first rap video. And I was like, yo, I heard, it wasn't the first rap I'd heard rap music, but I'd never seen the video. The little harmonica, whatever instrument noise. I'm like, oh, this is hard. Like, I like this. It's different though. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so my pops, and I always refer to this, like, you remember, Mo Better Blues, Shadow Henderson was in the goddamn store and he was buying them goddamn the long old school CD joints, the CDs that came in the long boxes. That was my pops every week. Whatever came out new, give it to me. And he funk and soul and he was a piano player and a vocalist, so he was big into music, but he was jazzy enough to like not shun rap like a lot of our parents did. So pops own stake 3 Feet High and Rising. Right? And so I played that junk. I was like, this the video I seen. You know what I'm saying? And so my godmother and my mom knew I was a De La. So De La album came out, huh? You know what I'm saying? De La Soul dead, huh? Tape. They always did that for me. So I was always with De La is one of the more consistent things, or groups in like my whole hip hop journey. They always been around.
So what about Balloon Mind State? How did you feel about that album? Which, for those watching and listening, that's the album right before Stakes is High.
So all I knew is Break It Dawn is god dang amazing.
Yeah.
Right? But like I was young. I was super, super young. So I don't know if I grasped like what they were doing, the
Mm,
reinvention. Like I didn't
right.
grasp it. Right. And I was still just kind of young, growing in hip hop. It's kind of why this album, so Stakes came out after my junior year in high school.
Mm,
So the things you do in the summer of your junior year in high school and is some of the more, defining things of your lifetime. So it's like I'm finally old enough to kind of understand more complex concepts as an adult and or a young adult and
right.
having more understanding. So previous to that, I just like how the music sounded.
Hmm. Yeah, I could. I feel like for me, I was a fan of De La Soul, especially their debut, 3 Feet High and Rising, and a lot of it had to do with how animated the album was because I was of a certain age, and like you said, Potholes in My Lawn was dope. Me, Myself, and I was dope, and it was mainly for me. It was the video was like fun and all of that, and then all the colors on the album. So everything that was excite a little kid, who loves hip hop at this point. Um, and then when De La Soul Is Dead came out, before I heard it, I didn't understand it because I love Ring Ring Ring. Like I love that shit. Uh, so I thought it was, part two, party part two. But then I was like, well, why are they rejecting the thing I liked? Like, why? And like you, I felt the same way. I wasn't dialing in on the lyrics and the overall theme and everything that was being said. Um, and I knew they wanted to part ways with it. And I knew the album was dope. By the time they got to their third album, I think I was like heavy into other stuff. Tribe, Woo, like everything that was new was I was laser focused on. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So when it was like, oh, Daylight is here again, and I heard the single Break of Dawn, I was like, that song is dope. But I never had the bread to buy all those other things and that. So that was something I listened to later. But one of the things that I learned later, especially much later when I did like a ranking of the albums and I listened to everything again, Balloon Mind State, but definitely Stakes is High is like De La without the Prince
Prince
Paul
Paul.
influence. So now back then, I didn't know. It was just New Daylight. You know what I'm saying? But I think in retrospect, especially with those albums, especially with this one, I could hear it more like, oh, I see what Prince Paul brought to De La that we liked that's not here. So it feels like a new De La. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And similar to Outkast in 96 and Nas in 96, where their albums in that year change who they were going forward and how they created music, right? Because Nas, he hasn't made another project like Illmatic since, but everything is a rendition of what he, did on It Was Written. Same thing with Outkast. Southern Playalistic was gone, and you was just gonna get different. So I felt like with
Mhm.
De La, it was almost like we were getting to know them again for the first time.
Mhm.
Um, so 18 songs, because they be doing skits and all of that. About
Shout
an
out Prince
hour and
Paul.
8 minutes, right? About an hour and 8 minutes. Fam, let me ask you this: Stakes is High is out. You go pick it up, CD, tape. What's the story behind your first listen?
Tape. Ooh. So I remember this was out. What was the Tribe was out too, right? The Tribe came out. Did the Tribe come out right
It
after that?
came out
The
later
one
in the
with Once
month.
Again.
Yeah, like but the single was out.
So I didn't cop first day. I bought Nas, right? I end up going to summer school that summer. I'm in summer school, and my man is in the same class. Shout out to Reese, shout out to Sham. And Sham, like, you still rocking the Nas? Listen to these two. And he just gave me the CDs, just handed them to me. And so had a little chick, she had a car. And so I'm like, put this in. What's this? Shut up, just put it in. And riding back to the crib, man. And when I tell you the rest of that summer, me and that young lady rolled around listening to the most classic of Scared of Hoes music. And we really, listen, I enjoyed it. That is one of the, riding around in that green Corolla specifically, is where it takes me. And that's, I was having a conversation with with Kill. And I was like, yo, if you miss something, right, there is no level of go back and listen that allows you to feel what it felt like when certain things was outside in the streets. And the way that I rode around that summer, man, it's like when you put that album back on, or you put the CD in, or you press play on MP3, or you go to streaming, there's a piece of where you first touched it every time, pause, that you feel every time you listen to one of these songs. And that's what stakes is high for me.
Yeah, man. I think for me, my story is a little bit different. And we're definitely going to get into this when we start talking about lyrics. But I wasn't feeling the hating. You know, like I was just kind of like, what he say? Like, it's a lot of shots at Champagne. Like, what's the problem? And that goes for, a couple of individuals who I was fans of, like J. Rue the Damager. You know what I'm saying? Where but he probably got it the worst for me as a fan, because I was like, I'm not fucking with that nigga. That's it. Like,
I was
and you
just
from
the
Brooklyn?
opposite.
Like,
I was the opposite. I loved it. Yeah, F them niggas, cuz. Like, I was with them. I was with them. It did. Listen, I have never, in rap beefs, there's only one time where I was like mad at one of the other niggas. But like in rap beefs, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I love Big.
yeah.
But he was talking that talk, and I was like, oh, I see. But it's what was cool about that time, because I feel like for me, this is one of the more influential records for me, because for quite some time, that was my rap identity. I didn't want to hear them flossing, the flossy rappers,
Right.
the shiny shoot rappers. Like they messing it up. And then things would happen to validate those feelings, like the locks before Puff and the locks after Puff. Right. And so for years, I was like, yeah. And then what I ended up realizing later is I would cut certain music off because I wasn't with them.
Because you wasn't with it.
Yeah, this don't fit my jam sport.
Well, hold up. Let Brooklyn talk for a minute, right? Since we talk about J. Rue the Damager from Brooklyn, we talk about Big from Brooklyn. Y'all was grimy in the early 90s, far behind me. It ain't hard to find me number one with the booyaka. Like, come on, man. The dude rap, okay?
Yeah.
But also, some of us don't hold up the wall when we go to the club. And that's kind of what I liked about Big, because you wasn't just he didn't just convert to Shiny Suit. And we know where that came from. We know what the Juicy beat. We know how Big truly felt about it.
Get that baby all off the record.
Right. But with going back to De La, as a fan, I just didn't feel like it was necessary. I felt like they were dope enough to just make dope music, to make people say they're still dope, which I think they did in a lot of respects. I think it just at that point in time with me, it just kind of made me slow to this project. But when I heard another song, and then another song. I was like, oh shit, wait a minute. This
See,
shit
for
fire.
me, they they pushed me the way they pushed uh the raucous movement, right? But which came after this. But I think this album was necessary for all those albums to be necessary, because I felt like hip hop was going one way. I was just bragging about my son, like, yo, nah, they used to play like Buckshot in the 5 o'clock ride home, like in
Right.
here, like not even like had to go to New York. They were playing it here, and you know what I'm saying, between Baltimore and DC. We were hearing all types of hip hop, and then there was a push where it was like, okay, Formula Records and records that you know, were being targeted to do certain things instead of
Right.
just making good music, right? And I felt like they saw it before I saw it, and they were calling it out because they knew an imbalance was coming.
Yeah, I think like with De La in general, and some of those MCs appear on this album, like Common and Most Def.
Most
Um, but I think for De La, what bothered me was they were highly successful at a time where you could just do that.
Mhm.
But the industry is a business, and they know more than anybody it is a business. It just felt like Big isn't Vanilla Ice. He isn't
Right.
a plant. You know what I'm saying? He isn't only champagne. You know what I'm saying? Like Warning and Unbelievable. Like, did you not hear these tracks? That's how I felt, but I get what they were saying because they probably were being asked to do that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you guys make another Me, Myself, and I, and hit the clubs, they like you when you do that. But
Which gave them that insight to see it early. Is like,
right,
oh, so the money is now, the money used to chase the rappers and they chased the cool. Now they were trying to manufacture it. And I
right.
I kind of, the more that we sit here and just talk about it, I can see exactly like what their deal was. It's like, oh, this industry's getting phony.
Right, right. Yeah, because for those who don't know, they're veterans at this point. They came out in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what some people forget, that De La been here since the 80s. But let's get into a couple of tracks. Obviously, the themes will continue. Um, Dope intro, stakes is high. It kind of set the tone for me to, like, even though it's quick intro / song, I was like, they kind of spitting on here. This same De La, like back in the days, like, and when I say that, I don't mean like capability, like, no, they're better than they were. You know what I'm saying? Um, when you heard the intro song, also Super MCs, which has some of those themes, what did you think about them tracks?
So first, the one thing that immediately grabbed me, and I would love for someone to kind of do this again, and I'm not sure what album they would do it with, but that when I first heard Criminal Minded, like I was at a black park, like I thought they were already telling you, oh, we about to do something. Like it's the,
Mm,
you know what I'm saying? It's the dramatic music with the lights and it's
mhm.
telling you, listen, this is where we're going. And then you hear, I believe the word I would use is aggressive. They were clearly more aggressive, less relaxed than earlier De La stuff, right? It
Right,
was like I could see the fingers wagging.
right,
And
right, right.
and I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen. And you know what? You got a point. I'm tired. And like I told, like I bought in. I
Mm,
bought in. It wasn't like I didn't like the other music. I didn't dislike the stuff that they was talking about. Now, some of that music was precursor to music I ended up hating and
right.
hating on, depending on what it was. Um, but like, listen, it grabbed me immediately, and I was sitting in front of the class learning something that summer.
Mm. And where I don't know if I asked you this, but where were you? You were in high school around the time this
So
dropped?
this is I like I said, I was in summer school, Glen Burnie High School.
Mm.
I was at summer school. You couldn't go to your regular high school, whatever, but whatever. I was like I said, I didn't have a license at the time, but I had a little chick who had a car and rode around all summer and you know what I'm saying? And played it in the goddamn car and played it when we got over our people's house and all that, man. And that's really and I was a headphone kid. I was the
Mm.
kid who always had the CD booklet in the backpack. It was a JanSport, brown
Mhm.
tan bottom, black, you know the JanSport.
Right, right.
And the headphones was on. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it was that cheap cost pair that the earphone one of them died.
I
You know what
forgot
I'm
about
saying?
those. Right, right.
But like, yeah, it was so I was a headphone kid and a passenger for the majority of like when this was out.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I could see that, as far as, like, what's being said in these songs and the time and the climate. Um, the business. Now the business featuring Common features a lot of those hating ass lyrics that I was talking about. Uh, but that wasn't my initial reaction. My initial reaction was like, shit, I need to go pick this album up. This shit kind of dope. You know what I'm saying? And Common got busy. De La obviously got busy. But I think by the time this song came on, like you said, how it felt like they were establishing a tone.
Mhm.
Um, this was like, no, this is a part of what we have to say on this project. What do you think about that song, The Business?
Uh, Crazy. And the thing is I can say like I never heard a song like this because it sounded different. There was a different little swing to it, and we all know like Common sort of rhymes on beat, but he takes that joint with him, kicking and screaming, and pulls it with him. Like, oh, the deliveries is crazy. It's different. It's new because I've
Mm,
listened to De La, but that's De La's always been sonically like they innovated. You know what I'm saying? Is they didn't chase, and
mhm.
it just that the boom. But even the way it came on, it was like this how niggas be talking and all this. I'm like, man, this is just great. Like I was excited, specifically with that joint. It was different, man. It was tough.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I heard it, I was like, this record is fire. Um, and I felt like I was sleeping on a group that I was a fan of. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So obviously, eventually, I got it. Let's skip a little bit forward because we're gonna talk about some of your favorite tracks also. Um, but one song that back then when I first heard it made me smile, and even listening uh earlier today, the breaks or breaks, right? Which is you would never think somebody is gonna say, you remember that Curtis Blow song? Let's do a version of it, but after eras put it this way, Rakim and then Yes Yes Y'all's and Co Rock the Parties was over, right?
Mhm.
But to pay homage to someone like Curtis Blow, where the breaks was a big hit for him, but also do it in such a way that came across really dope and almost unique. Like if you didn't know, this is a dope Daylight record. What do you think about breaks?
So it speaks to what we were just talking about. It's sonic innovation, right? It's
Mhm.
we don't I don't know if I can go out somewhere else and get this. And when you
Right.
start to realize like, hip hop is still super young. So being nostalgic about hip hop in an era where you are having some of the young, hungriest niggas ever. Like
Mm.
I don't remember a more shark infested water than 96, 97, 98. Like all the niggas was out, all the old niggas was still trying to do something. everybody was outside in them waters. Them was rough waters. And you know what's super easy to do in rough waters is doggy paddle. Keep your standard. Do what you want to do. Be safe, right? But they didn't do that. They were aggressive, like, nah, come on, y'all swim with us, and we're gonna put y'all on. And records like that just prove like how not necessarily being ahead of your time, but not being afraid to make music that you haven't heard people do before. And I think that's a super dope example of them, you know what I'm saying, doing exactly that.
Perfect segue, because honestly, like, I totally agree with you on all of these episodes. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the climate of 1996, right? You have a debut from Jay-Z. You have a follow-up to Illmatic. You have Tribe returning, but that ain't Fife. Like, you know what I'm saying? You have Jay Dilla under the you know what I'm saying, in the shadows, like Batman, kind of sonically helping push some of this sound that you're talking about. And for those watching, the true Shiny Suit era was really just 97, because that's when, like, once Life After Death dropped, and then obviously Diddy's album, that's when you got Mace, you got a lot. That's when you got the actual shiny suits in full force, but it really only lasted in 97, because 98 was, you know, DMX and all of that. But
Twice.
To your point, in 1996, right? You know, you have all these albums, debuts and comebacks, and, you know, people emerging and stepping it up to a different level, like the Fugees with The Score and stuff like that. When you look at, and let's not forget, Tupac, 2 platinum albums in 1 year, Hit 'Em Up, all you old rappers looking like Larry Holmes, flabby and sick, like you said, shark infested waters, but everybody seemed to be putting out some of their best work. How do you think De La, with this album, where and shout out to Marcus J. Moore, who I know all the beef. Trust me, he's a big fan. If you're a fan, the book was worth it. Who I did an interview with about that book, and, you know, him just kind of capturing De La's journey, especially musically, as a big fan of theirs. You could see that Tribe was the native tongue, like the best group to most people. Clearly became the most popular, but they was an offshoot of an offshoot of an offshoot when you really think about it, from Jungle Brothers to De La Soul and stuff like that. How do you think De La was able to stand in those shark-infested waters when they have a young game in hip-hop where people feel like you're old if 2 years pass, and all of these new guys that are taking over in new sounds?
I've always been jealous of people who didn't overthink things, right? Like, you know, I often get, you know, stuck in my head like, oh, what if I do this? I can do this and that. And it's why I do, you know what I mean? Like the content creation side of you know, producing podcasts, because I like that part, because I can control as much as possible. And that's really due to like just the fear of the unknown, right? And them niggas were fearless. They didn't care. They said, we gonna do what we want. We're gonna make the music we want. And we are gonna wave a finger at the niggas that are having success, not because we don't know what success looks like, but because you got these goddamn record executives trying to make us them when we already know we're dope. And I think their ability to have success previously allowed them just to be brave. Like, nah, we ain't no suckers. We gonna make the music we want to make, and we gonna talk crazy.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think that's what this album is, right? One thing about De La Soul that's consistent, whether they want to admit it or not, they've always talked crazy. Like, the majority of their albums, you could go back, they talk. you can go back in fashion in hip hop and hear them talking about gold chains and leather bombers to talking about champagne. So they've always stood for something more pure and not materialistic, which is, to me, is their greatest asset, because to this day, they're so dope, but they are the regular niggas, you know. You know what I'm saying? They are the dudes who may not appear to look like the best rapper in look. Talking about you, Rock Marcy. But when they step in the cypher, they can make, no matter what type of rapper you are, they can get your attention. Like, yo, he's nice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. Real quick, let's talk about the title track, because there's a lot with the title track, from the jazz sample, right? To Jay Dilla, to what De La did with it. Man, when you first heard Stakes is High, the title track, man, what was your thoughts about the record?
I hate to keep saying the same thing, but I've never heard something that sounds like this. And that's what this was. That day, a lot of people talk about that record store day because niggas went to Kemp Mill or Maxi Waxies or wherever you was copping music from, and you had a choice, right? I chose Nas. But sonically, De La chose me moving forward. So the reason I was a super Monch head and a super Mos and Quai and everything Rawkus did was because of this album. And when I heard that song, it just sounded like nothing else. Like, I remember that summer, the right around the same young lady, the Nutty Professor soundtrack, I think it was, with the Foxy and J record. Ain't no, was that Ain't No Nigga?
Yeah.
I enjoyed the concept of the record, but that music didn't speak to me. The stuff De La specifically was doing, like, Stakes is High, the way the you know, 'cause my father's a musician, so you hear instruments in this is samples, but it's done maybe with a higher aptitude for sonics, as far as like musicianship and the way that they sample, where you can actually hear the instruments. It's like you just hear, it just sounds different, and it just spoke directly to me when I was when I pressed play.
Yeah. Another great segue. I think, to your point about Jay-Z's Ain't No Nigga and the subject matter for that song, right? You know, it's really I'm gonna put it in a way that the lyrics don't, right? you trying to talk to a young lady, and you know, you letting each other know how you feel about one another. But a song that's the same concept in a lot of ways through, I think this was Pac's verse on Better Listen, where he's trying to get to this young lady. He's not trying to do the traditional Mackin style, even though his goal and his interests are exactly the same as Jay-Z's, but it happens in a way that's real. You know what I'm saying? Because she expects him to be like Jay-Z's character in Ain't No Nigga, and he's a little bit different than that, right? Even though his goal is exactly the same, the approach is what helps her let her guard down, and they get into it. And, you know, I mean, y'all listen to the song, but I don't think back then I was thinking and comparing those two in that way. I was just thinking, you know, oh, this is a dope record. But it was interesting that you brought up that song in particular, when there's an example, an alternative to how it can be approached by another cat who just has a different approach than, you know, I'm the best nigga you know. Give me a number. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's what makes like this kind of series that you're doing really dope, because then it was all feelings, right? It was feelings and what I liked. Now it's feelings and 30 years of perspective.
Right.
So you can come back, and that makes it makes all this art cool to revisit, because now you like, well, dang, now I realize as I listen to it why I gravitated towards such and such. And it's cool, man. I think I'm gonna start just digging into a bunch of these records myself, because it's a good time to revisit.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. But um one of the things I think I left out for this episode specifically is where I was around this
Mm,
time, because I think what makes my perspective different is I'm 1 year out of college, Morgan State University. Um, I'm still a business major at the Earl Graves School of Business on a business scholarship for marketing. And so you can't tell me shit. I got a job at Chase
mm,
Manhattan right near the World Trade Center. Little job, little summer job. Um, Basically to buy music and get there. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
And so I was absorbing music on a level where part of me feels like, damn, I remember the little jobs I used to do before college. Now I'm on this path. You know what I'm saying? But I'm still ahead, and all of this stuff is dropping, and I'm you with the headphones, but obviously a little older, but I'm on the trains to New York with my, shirt and tie, and I'm
mm,
listening to Nas and Jay and Daylight and all these different people. Um, but I remember that's kind of when I started to like listen a little differently, a little
mm,
intently to what was
mm,
being said. And I was definitely more emotional about it because I had a long history with Daylight specifically. And at this time, Ain't No Nigga for me was different because it wasn't a song, it was the club.
mm.
So when that was on,
Oof. I wasn't looking for no tattoo.
yeah,
I
you
was
didn't, you didn't,
doing it.
if you didn't have no game, if you knew the lyrics to this while you dancing with a chick, you already talking to her. You already talking to her. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know why you dance. This is when they used to dance, kids. Yeah, we would dance with the women. Like not
Now
finger
don't
gun
tell too
point.
much of that story, because if they dig deep into those, it's a lot of charges we would catch. You met
Right,
a woman. She was your back with her. You just started with.
right,
No, I can't tell all them stories.
right. Uh, but yeah, I think also that played a little bit into the climate for me because, like you, when I was on a high school level, I was more like you. You know what I'm saying? Yo, I got my JanSport, got my music. Like I'm ready to roll. This was more me feeling like, oh, I'm a college student now. I
Mm,
go to HBCU. I'm black business. I was feeling myself. So um, again, it was a different. Sometimes when you look at where you are in your life and you go back to some of this music, which takes you back there, you have a different connection with the music. And I definitely get what you're saying because, again, shout out to Marcus J. Moore. Listening to Daylight was him finding his identity also. Like, oh, I like that other stuff, but this is me. Like,
mm.
this is me. So I agree. Now, fam, I want to know, what are some of your favorite songs off this album? Top 5 or whatever, but also why?
So my favorite joint on here is just because I love, like you don't have to be able to do something to love doing it, right? People
Mm,
love to dance. I like to sing. And that got thing is a dog eat dog competition.
yeah.
I ain't got time. Man, listen, boy, I can't. Every time I listen to this album, I sing that
Mm,
for 3 days, right? Like I gotta wash it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then Big Brother Beat.
Mm.
The MC formerly known as Most Definite Not Think So. Amazing voice.
Mm-hmm.
Another very, very confident MC,
Mm-hmm.
right? Almost arrogant. If you listen to Most is crazy.
Also from Brooklyn. Let me just add that real quick. That's all.
That it man, listen, I listened to that, and then Stakes is High, of course, man. You can't listen to Stakes without cutting on Stakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hold on before you cut this off. Let me, you know what I'm saying? Um the the common record, just because.
Mm-hmm.
So when you listen to Common rap, right? It's like I said, he takes the beat with him kicking and screaming when he raps. But it's so like whip anybody as an MCA, MVA. Like it's fun. Like you having a good dang time when you listen to that calm specifically. You know what I'm saying? Before he got entangled with that wild woman from Dallas. But yeah, like listen, those are the joints off the top of my head though that I love.
Mm. Yeah, I'm the same on a few. Obviously, I love Stakes is High. I just love that record. Just feels good. Like as soon as it's on, man, you don't even have to know a word. You know the whole vibrations.
Vibrations.
Stakes is high. Like
Yes.
it pulls you in. Like you want to know. Damn, what Stakes is high for? What? Let me listen. Like you know what I'm saying. I really like Down Syndrome because when I heard that, I was like, man, is this De La Soul? Like rapping? Now the title, I ain't gonna front. I was like,
Yeah.
what's this about? Like, you know what I'm saying? Um, but the beat and how they spitting over that beat, it's again one of those records that told me, oh, De La Soul is not gonna be one of those 80s rap groups that or artists that fade away with time. Like they've adapted. And like you said, they kind of laid the foundation. I didn't think about that. So that's a good point. They kind of laid the foundation for what we would get with rockers. You know what I'm saying? Which is kind of dope because honestly, even being a fan of most of the guys they might have been talking about, we needed that.
Mhm.
We needed rockers to do what they did at the time they did it.
You don't get the manifesto without Stakes is High.
Right. Exactly. It's so easy. Man, when I heard that record, I was like, yo, this De La Soul in 96? Like,
I
I
like
was
to
like,
sing, yo.
yo.
I like to sing.
Yeah, I was just like, this is cool. It's I mean, it's everything. Um, Better Listen for the reasons I already mentioned. Um, and a late bloomer for me, and I think it's probably more so in recent years because I was so focused on the joints I really, really like from this album, Super MCs, because I was just like,
Dynamic MC.
I was like, damn, did I miss this? Like, you know what I'm saying? You know you heard it, but when you hear it with different ears, older ears, you're kind of like, man, I kind of slept on this one. I ain't gonna front. I treated it like I just need to get to the business record with Common
Mhm.
when it was super dope by itself also. Uh Now let me ask you this. Hearing this in 96 at the age you were,
Mhm.
summer school for whatever reasons,
Mhm.
right?
Host.
Right. uh, and listening to it now in 2026, do you, when you run it back, do you get those same feelings about the record and the album and the time, or is it a little bit different?
It's man, it's sitting in the basement and pouring you a glass of brown liquor and be like, yeah, remember that time? We
Mm.
was over there and we did that thing and it was cool. Like that's what it feels like to play these records. Um, it's we get a blast of nostalgia now, right? Which to me makes it, you know what I mean? It's like aging the liquor. Like it tastes better now because god
Right.
dang it, the music is good, right? But
Right.
also I got this touch point where, oh man, I remember I was coming down Ritchie Highway and XYZ Element OP. And then Big Brother Beat came on.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Like, I think to everything you said about Daylight on Stakes is High and what you think they were trying to do and what they did do,
Mhm.
it's more apparent now
Yep.
outside of that climate than anything because the album has aged well. So
Mhm.
even if the point wasn't really taken at the time by some fans or non-fans or whoever it may have been, uh, I think in retrospect, if people go back and listen to this album and think about all the things we said, what the writer described in Apple Music, where Common was at this point in time, you know what I'm saying? Where Most Def wasn't yet, but was kind of bubbling under the surface. And even those that kind of did neo soul before it was a thing, and Jazzy Fat Nasty's appearing on the album,
Mhm.
right?
Just a little bit.
There's a lot of elders passing things on, but they're not
Mhm.
passing it on because they tired. They're becoming active. Like, I'm going into war with you. So I think um Stakes is High is like a pivotal point for Daylight. And there's one other thing I want to ask you because I forgot to really touch on it. Because what do you feel about what Daylight, and this is whether you went back, you know what I'm saying, or you kind of saw it back then, but I know you said you were younger. What do you think about Daylight with Prince Paul and without Prince Paul? Like, do you think they're better or you think they needed Prince Paul to get to this point?
Um, there we were talking before we got on here and started recording, we were talking about pro wrestling. There's a guy
Mhm.
named Trick Williams, new guy, who young black dude, you know, good looking dude, you know, he looked like a wrestler, good sized guy. When you first see Trick, like, oh, I get it. This is tough,
Mhm.
right? He went and did a run in another company, and in a new environment was allowed to do the thing that the goddamn caterpillars do in the cocoon,
Mm.
where they come out on the other side. And the caterpillar part was slick and necessary. But when they come out of the cocoon and you turn into what Daylight turned into on Stakes is High, it became apparent, especially for me, that I love 3 Feet High and Rising.
Mm.
But this is one of the most important records ever made, like
Mm.
full stop. And so I love 3 Feet High and Rising, but Stakes High is my favorite, one of my favorite albums ever.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely agree with the way you put that because there was a part of me that didn't know, but could hear something was different, and I didn't know what that difference was. And obviously, in retrospect, looking back and knowing a little bit more about the group and their journey, my preference is, even though 3 Feet High is always going to be my favorite because it was the first thing that left an impression on me at that time and at that age. But Daylight Stakes is High forward is probably more my speed because
Mhm.
the clowning and the goofy shit worked with me as a kid.
Mhm.
As a grown man, I'm like, man, what aliens farting? Like, what we talk? What we doing? Like, what is this? Uh, you know what? And why are there a million skits? And you know, in a lot of ways, they kind of they kept some of that humor, but they also refined it to focus more on just being MCs and hip hop and boom bap and in their way, like you said, in a De La way, as opposed to, because they wasn't even that, right? Like, sure, they wasn't going to be Shiny Suit, but they wasn't your typical boom bap either. Which
that was the thing, right? Is the way they came out, the Daisy Age and all that. A lot of niggas is like, oh, why? Song hard, but them niggas weird. That, so even as a young nigga, I kind of understood that part, because that was always kind of me too. Like, this nigga ain't no tough nigga. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
and so
right.
I'm not a tough guy, and I like the way that I was a little kid, like wrestling and rap music, right? So I understood what that first part of De La was, but then I also understood the pigeonhole that it put them in, and they took 2 albums to fight their way out of it. And then we got that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so dope about it, because all of it is them just being creative. Like, whatever the theme is, whatever direction they tried to take, but they wanted people to know they were more. And I think that was the main thing, the labeling. De La didn't want any labels on them, right? They would shun whatever they wasn't about, get it off me. Like, I'm not that.
Yeah.
Sort of like, especially jazz musicians in the early days, right? Like, a lot of them, they didn't call it jazz. Like, they shunned that word, jazz. They would call it, they were calling everything else. Like, yo, it's like black classical music, or freeform, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't want the label. And, but you had people like Miles Davis, and Herbie Hancock, who's like, watch this. I try to take all of this and, stir it up and create something new on top of it. So, shout outs to De La Soul, man. Stakes is high in 1996. Veterans in the game, you know what I'm saying? Like, in a hostile environment, East versus West. You know what I'm saying? The roots also changed at the time. Like, it was a jumping off point for a lot of groups and artists to make a shift in order to get to the future we now know, right? Classics and legends and all that. But a lot of it happened in 96, and it even happened for De La Soul with this statement. Fam, I want to thank you for coming on the show, helping break down this album. No problem, man. Break down this album, talk about De La a little bit. Shiny Suit era, smart mouth. Watch your mouth when you're talking about watch it. Okay. But yeah, man, dope episode. Tell everybody, man, about the things you're doing, Black Wrestling, all of that.
All right. So first and foremost, illfam79 your social media choice. At Black Wrestling, that's BLACKRASSLIN, because we say it like we said it back in the day. Black Wrestling, man. And also, shout out to the ladies at 30-minute time limit. That's at 30TMLBRP. We're doing some other things, man. We're trying to grow the network. At Black Wrestling, youtube.com/Black Wrestling is where you can get to us, man. And hey, man, be confident with your innovations, man. De La proved it.
Absolutely, man. And you'll be able to find a link to the description to their YouTube channel in this episode, whether you listen in audio or watch it here on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC, all platforms. Continue to listen to the podcast in audio form if that's what you do, whether Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, but also join the YouTube channel, become a member, receive exclusives. And also, memberships is not necessarily about you putting money in my pocket. I got money. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have Shiny Suit money, but I'm good. Everything that goes to this podcast, whether it's a super chat, a membership, a Cash App goes right back into the production of this episode. All you gotta do is go back about 5 years and look at an episode and be like, oh shit, yeah, he ain't lying. I can't see him in this old video. It's blurry than the motherfucker. I'm not lying, y'all. So to become a member, that's also a link in the description so you can learn a little bit more about what that is. Stay tuned for more from this 1996 series. 30 years since these albums dropped, man. 30 years ago. And a ton of albums that are considered classics, pivotal moments in hip-hop, all happening in the same year. So stay tuned for more. But until then, y'all, we're not critics, we're fans. Peace.